Hey, what is going on, guys? Rudelanal here, come back at you with another batch tutorial. Alright, let's get the Windows command line ready for us to use, along with Notepad++, and, let's get cracking. Alright, now in the last couple of videos we've been looking at functions. We've been looking a whole lot about functions, actually. We've been creating a local scope, so the variables inside of our function will be only accessible inside that function, just like the way things should be. We've been looking at return statements, returning inside local functions, and that sort of thing. Now, today I want to be talking to you guys about another quirk that Batch has. A really, really ugly and really problematic quirk that Batch has, but I want to show you guys a workaround, as ugly as a workaround might be. So let's create a script, though. That's enough of me talking. Let's actually write some code. Okay, I'm gonna create a script. Script.bat as usual. You can call mine whatever you'd like as usual. You can call yours whatever you would like. Anyway, I screwed up that sentence, guys. I'm sorry. We can go to our main function. We can create the main function. Inside the main function, once we're done, we can go to the end of the function or end of file, whatever you prefer to think of it as. We can set local and end local. And, let's actually display, because we want to be setting a variable. We're going to say creating, actually, created variable x and set it to the value of x. Now, obviously, we're going to want that variable. So up top, we can just say set x, and I'm going to be using the -a tag because we want to keep in mind that this is an integer and a number that we're going to be working with. So set -a, x can equal 1. How about that? Okay. Now, I want a new function. How about the add1 function that we've been using the past couple of videos? To the end of file, end of function. We are going to want set local and end local in here. Local. And this function really isn't going to do much other than display running add1. And now we're going to return a new value of x. Because if you guys remember in the last couple of videos, we were able to manipulate x inside this add1 function because it's been created inside main before we run the add1 function, and main is the one calling the add1 function. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. If we set -a, remember, x to equal the value of x plus 1. So we added 1, and now we can call, actually let's add a new line, we can call add1, I'll add another new line, and now we can just display the value of x is now the value of x. Okay. And that's all I want so far. Let's go ahead and run our script, creating a variable x and setting it to 1, running add1, and the value of x is now 2. Okay, so this looks a whole lot like what we've been working with in some of the other videos. In fact, a whole lot of the function videos that we've been looking at just recently. But what if, hypothetically, we had a whole lot more variables? What if we had a bigger program or a bigger project where there's a whole lot more to keep track of? So we'll want to create some more variables. How about that? What if we wanted our function to be a little bit more general purpose? What if it could do more? What if we could just throw a variable at it and then it'll add 1 to that variable and that's all it really needs to be done? Can we do that? Let's take a look at it. Remember, we can make our functions a little bit more versatile if we pass in some information or data. So if we use a tilde and the little 1, so we can pass in x, in our case, the value of x, we can pass it in right here. Now x is going to equal this value of x and then add 1. Now if we run this, create a variable x and set it to 1, running add1, the value of x is now 2. Okay, this works pretty well, but we're still kind of limited to our x variable. What if we wanted to have a little bit more in there? Let's create a new variable. How about we set y to equal 50? And now we can pass in y to go ahead and add 1 to it. Created variable x and set it to 1, running add1, the value of x is now 51. What? We wanted to add 1, not 50. So let's actually go ahead and see what we're doing here, because we're passing in the value of y, which is 50, and we're setting x, which we already set to be 1 up here, to 50 plus 1. So x becomes 50, but okay, how about we need to change this to to the argument that we pass in, or the variable that we're passing in. Does that make any sense? Well, wait a second, down here we're actually passing in the value. We have to, because remember, if we passed in just plain old y, we as humans, or the programmer, are understanding that, okay, we want to pass in the variable y, but your function doesn't actually understand that. It interprets it as, okay, we're sending in the string y. So we have a little bit of a problem here. The way we as programmers can only tell our function that we want to be modifying the y variable by looking at the y variable's value, we actually have to pass in both. We have to pass in both the variable name, because we want to be able to change that real variable, and we need to pass in the value of the variable so we can work with what we already have. Does that make any sense? So if we pass in y to be our first variable, and then we pass in the value of y to be our second variable, we're setting a to be, we want y, which in this case is what we're passing in for the first variable, and then we're passing in the value of y as our second argument, so we can change that to up here. And now let's run our script again. Created variable x and set it to 1, running add 1, and the value of x is now 1. Okay, that's good. It hasn't changed x because we didn't want that, remember. But if we actually passed x in? If we pass in x, created variable x and set it to 1, running at 1, the value of x is now 2. Okay, that works. That does what we want. How about if we change it to y, and we look at the value of y instead? Y is now created x and set it to 1, running at 1, the value of y is now 51. And remember, y was 50 to begin with, so we have successfully added 1 to y, and we had to make a little bit more of a mock-up sort of scheme to be able to modify that variable with the current value. It's really, really ugly because you should not have to pass in the name of the variable to be able to change it along with the value, but hey, this is the way Batch is going to have us work, which really kind of sucks. But there are a lot of times where you probably have to pass in a lot more variables than this, and you'll just have to keep adding like x, value of x, z, value of z, and it'll just look plain old terrible, and you should never have to do that. You never actually have to do that in a real programming language or scripting language, but in Batch we might have to. Honestly, you might not even use this too much, but remember, this is another tactic or one way of doing things. So thank you guys for watching, though. I hate to break the bad news to you, but hey, we do have a little bit more interesting stuff going on in the later videos, and you know, we probably won't even use this sort of tactic too much, but I just want to introduce to you guys that this is the way we can do stuff. But hey, it's ugly. Well, hey, we'll move on. Thank you guys for watching, though. If you enjoyed the video, please press the like button. It lets me know what sort of things you like to see, that sort of thing. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of the series. I would absolutely love that. What sort of series you want me to attack in the future. And, you know, if you're feeling generous, subscribe. I would really like that. And, you know, I think you would get a lot more nice content if you did. But thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.